good morning, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovillians. Today, I'm honored to have Ashoke with us to tell us something of his life and work and his connection with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Namaste. How did you begin? You say you lived in Nagpur.
I was born in Ajmer in Rajasthan, and I did my studies in Nagpur. And during our summer vacations, we used to drive down to Kolkata to meet our relatives and go down to our village, which was about 40 kilometers from Kolkata. And I distinctly remember during one of my visits to Kolkata, we used to take the tram ways. And from central Calcutta, which is called Esplanade, we took a tram to go towards South Calcutta. Now, somehow or other, the electricity failed and we were asked to get down from the tram. So one of my uncles who took me, he was a freedom fighter.
Oh,
So he came out. He says, my nickname was Shontu. He says, Shontu, we are stranded, but luckily we are stranded in front of Alipur jail.
oh my God. And how old were you then?
And he then took us to the Alipur jail.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 14. And then he explained to me about Sri Aurobindo and his life. And then you'll be surprised, he even took me to Alipur courts where the judgment had taken place, in the courtroom, because he was so well informed about the cultural and political movement in the country. So he took me and he showed me. And that was the first time I heard of Sri Aurobindo in the Alipur jail where he was interned.
Did he know Sri Aurobindo?
He knew because he was a freedom fighter, but somehow or other he had missed him because he had left Bengal earlier. And so that is my first, I have heard of Sri Aurobindo. Right. Then we also used to visit various, like Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Ashram and things like that. He used to take us around.
Your uncle?
My uncle,
But
my
what
maternal
about,
uncle.
What about your parents?
My parents...
Any interest?
No, my parents were abroad. They were teaching in UK.
Oh.
And I was with my uncle. So that is how. But my mother, she had read about Sri Aurobindo. Then it's very interesting, as I told you, in Nagpur University, I was studying, and I was a reasonably good tennis player. So I represented Nagpur University, which was in South Zone, and came to Chidambaram to play tennis in 1950. And somehow or other it rained in Chidambaram that day. So all the matches were postponed. So we had two choices. Either we go to Rameshwaram for a visit or come to Pondicherry. So some of us, 3 of us, we decided to come to Pondicherry because it was more attractive being a French township. So we came here and somebody said, if you're a Bengali, you can go around to the ashram and you will definitely get something to eat. So So we came to know about Sri Aurobindo and Mother, but we were so young and not experienced enough. I was around 19. So, but we waited. Somebody told us that Mother goes to play tennis.
What month was this?
This was in February.
Of 1950.
Yes. So we waited, and unfortunately we had to go back to Chidambaram. We were told to be back by 5 o'clock. That meant that we leave around 3:34 to catch our bus. So we waited for Mother, and she did come down, but we were not aware of the fact that somebody should go and inform that there were young boys waiting to meet her. That protocol we had no idea about. But we saw Mother getting into her car to go to the tennis court, and we left. So that is the only experience that we had. Now, then in between, I used to read a few books about Sri Aurobindo, because my maternal uncle, eventually he was the first member of the parliament in the first parliament elections held in immediately after the Britishers left. So he was a minister in the center, and when I was a cadet in the Indian Military Academy, I used to go and spend some time with him in Delhi. And he always used to motivate us with stories about Gandhi, Sri Aurobindo, then others, Tagore, and made us read about them. So he was a bachelor, freedom fighter. He was in jail for political reasons. And ultimately, one day we heard that he has left everything and has withdrawn to the Himalayas. And we lost contact with him. So that is how we got to know more and more about Sri Aurobindo. Right. Now, over the years, I had a military career, and at the fag end of my career, I was heading Southern Army, which meant states of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, those days Andhra Pradesh, Goa, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andamans, Nicobar.
You were a general at the time?
Right, General Officer Commanding in Chief, Southern Army.
Southern Army.
And then we had, if you recollect, the Tamil problem in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
So I was the overall force commander. And I it's very interesting. Our main headquarters was Pune. The political headquarters was in Delhi. The forward headquarters was in Chennai. Tactical headquarters was in Jaffna, and diplomatic headquarters was Colombo. So I had to be in all these places at some point of time or the other. And it was a very strenuous assignment. And I did not even realize where I was. You got out of the bed and realized that, okay, you are in Trincomalee. So you will be meeting X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, you were in Pune. And Pune meant all money matters. Because sanctioning authority was Pune, main headquarters. However, now, at that point of time, the Lieutenant Governor of Pondicherry was my boss in the Indian Army. So he knew what stress and strain I was going under. So he invited me. He said, Ashok, you better come and relax here. So I used to be his guest and walk across to the ashram. And I got all the love and affection of Nirodha, then Dhuman Bhai, then Nolinida.
I see. Now,
Then-
this was what year?
Yeah.
What year was this?
It
ashram?
was 88, 89.
88, 89.
Then Pranobda, Udar,
Yes.
Wilfred,
They were still
Wilfie.
here. They were still here.
all they were.
Yes.
Yes. And incidentally, I used to see you also trimming the trees.
Service tree.
Yes. And so that is how. And frankly speaking, the love and affection which Nirodha gave me, he just took me under his wings and groomed me to be a good man. And that was the starting point. And he encouraged me to join Auroville.
Oh.
So I joined Auroville in 1990. 1990.
90?
Once I retired, the same day I joined.
I see.
Yes, and since then I am in Auroville and trying to understand the essence of human unity. And my experience has been, if an individual is integrated himself or herself, that is the stepping stone for human unity. If there is inner conflict, then the outer conflict also starts.
Yes.
And the other interesting aspect is that life in Auroville is demanding, but I feel Mother expects us to go through that because of the various demands. If you can meet them with equanimity, with understanding, love, concentration, that will lead you to human unity in the real sense. Otherwise, it remains more or less for point of discussion.
It is a crucible, is
Yes.
it not?
Right.
What is your work there?
I am presently looking after the one aspect of Sri Aurobindo International Institute of Educational Research, and we encourage, there are a number of institutions, about 22 institutions that we have under us. We encourage them to work for the betterment of Auroville, to bring up the new generation of children in the atmosphere which Mother would have loved to see. And we try and encourage cultural activities, educational activities, physical education, and by and large, we have been able to achieve a basic standard of education and a reasonable standard of satisfaction from the children. Because if they are not satisfied, is hardly of any use our pushing it down their throat.
So how do you view the education in Auroville? The educational system?
the education system we are by and large following mother's method of education, and it is child-centric, student-centric. The teachers have to understand what the child is expected to know, which direction he can be led to, and we definitely like a child to know his mind and his inner consciousness so that he develops accordingly. And as I said earlier, if a child is integrated, he or she can face anything in this world.
Now, I'd like to ask you very personally, how do you feel Oroville is progressing?
You see,
Because it is a collective experiment.
it is a collective, and then there are ups and downs in life. One day you get up, you're not too well. That also applies to Oroville. But that does not mean that there is no gradual growth, which is positive. And you see, the other trouble is being an international community. We have got, I think, 51 nationalities. The expectations, the philosophy of life of each individual differs. Now, you have to be broad-minded. You have to love that individual as a human being to understand what he or she is looking for. And if you can touch that soul, then you have understood her, and she has also understood you, and both of you take a next step. Now, there is a little dichotomy in Oroville. The youth is looking for material achievement. They need some sports activity which is thrilling. They would not like to run around in the tennis court alone. They would like to do surfing in the sea. They would like to do bungee jumping. Now, those aspirations have also got to be met. Now, that is where I feel it's not a conflict. It is the expectation of the youth and the elderly people who are attempting to provide that. There is always a gap. So that gap would remain as long as, because we cannot fill up all the gaps, it's very difficult. Then the other thing I feel, that you and I can manage with 2 shirts or 3 shirts. But a young boy who's coming up, he's 13, 14, if he sees a bright color shirt, he would like to own it. Let's face it.
Sure.
Now, for that, he expects that he works somewhere, earns his money to buy that shirt or a faster bike. Now, this aspect also has to be understood by senior Orovillians, that to great extent we have to meet that requirement. Otherwise, there is again little difference in our attitudes. We senior people are thinking only of spirituality, but the youngsters are looking at materialistic point of view to eventually graduate to spiritualism. So this has to be understood, that youth has different requirements and it cannot be always judged at spiritual level alone. So, this aspect I am trying to drum into our management, that we have to encourage the youth, bring them up in the right lines, and if we can take them, one or two children under your control, manage them properly, I am sure there is a bright future for Auroville.
What about money in Oroville? Mother had wanted to be no money within Oroville, but it would be necessary with the outside world.
You see, unfortunately, my generation, we were happy with one pair of shoes. But as I said earlier, you can't expect youngster not to have a good pair of shoes for playing his game of tennis. Now, that is where the difference lies. Money is essential, but it is not be all or end all of everything in life. And if the seniors can guide them, and I feel Auroville will do a great service to the youth if senior people can take one or two under their ward and bring them up, explain to them, love them, make them feel owned, and guide them. And money, of course, is always a problem everywhere. I'm sure even Bill Gates maybe at some time find he's short of money. But you can never be satisfied.
Oroville is planned as a township for 50,000, but for many, many years it has remained static.
Right.
With 1,600, 2,000. How will this change?
Now, it's very interesting. I had been thinking of this, and this itself leads us to some introspection. And because we are lacking probably in brotherhood, sense of sharing, caring, that the population or the strength is not going up. Now, therefore, it leads us to our self-introspection. We need to look into ourselves and make the atmosphere which will absorb larger population.
There are people I know who are very sincere, who have studied Mother and Sri Aurobindo. They want to be in Oroville, but they say it is so costly for a new person. I heard $15,000 a year for a new person, and one has already told me of this. So housing is needed.
$15,000. Okay.
What of those people who want to come, who are sincere,
I know.
who one can see, and they don't have enough funds? How do they get admitted?
You see, I agree with you that we definitely have become little money-minded. But that struggle is with an individual who wants to join Auroville. And there are places where one can work to earn their livelihood.
Oh,
And we are providing of late uh, accommodation, newcomers accommodation,
oh,
and I am not very sure whether their food and health is covered, but we try and cover that as well. Their food and health, but most certainly accommodation we try to give them. So, yes, it is. Unfortunately, the cost of living has gone up so high, and an individual probably is costing Auroville about 20,000 rupees, which is a month.
a month.
Yeah. But 20,000 rupees is what? 50 into what? 400.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$300 to $400, yeah, a month. Yes. Well, we have the 50th anniversary coming up. And Mr. Modi, I understand, will be here on the 28th. It's a big thing for Auroville to be recognized by the Prime Minister.
Yes. Surprisingly, I was told that he carries a mother's blessings always with him. I have not seen it, but I am told. And being from Gujarat, he knows Sri Aurobindo backwards. And I am told when he was a young boy, he had visited the ashram.
I see.
However, presently he, as a Prime Minister, whatever positive movement he finds anywhere, he likes to back it. Be it in spiritual movement, be it in the industrial field or in technology. You see, his mind is working that way
yes.
to be creative
Yes.
for the country. And I am sure when he comes to Auroville, he will look into that, whether Aurovillians are creative, whether have they. And I'm sure he will definitely appreciate. The biggest achievement, I think, what Auroville has done is we have made that area green.
Yes. Yes.
There's the biggest achievement
Yes.
that Auroville can set an example that it is possible. Number two, if 52 nationalities can live together without any crime,
Yes.
that itself speaks volumes
Yes.
about our community life. Then you will be surprised the number of young children, particularly foreigners, who know about Indian spiritualism. They are quite conversant with it. So they are ambassadors of India all over, wherever they go.
Yes. Yes.
Then every child in Auroville knows what is yoga, because in some way or the other they are practicing it. So these are the aspects I'm sure he will look into and get to know the strength of Auroville. And he will come to Matri Mandir, meditate for some time, see some of our activities. He may and may not get time to address. And we are expecting him to spend a couple of hours with us. And I'm sure he will go back with some very positive verbs and impression.
One of the things that I would consider on the top of the list would be the purchase of lands, because the inner city still is not complete. And yet Auroville has land outside the city. Perhaps the government could assist with that
You see,
harmoniously.
it is possible, but what is a government? Government is again human beings. A government is not something which is abstract.
Yes, yes.
Right. Now, this problem lies with Auroville. Our farmlands, which have been developed over the years, are outside the city limits. So people who have started from the scratch and which has become green and is yielding, for them to detach themselves becomes a human problem.
Yes.
Now, my personal feeling is that some of the land which is outside, but it's not much which we can exchange.
I see.
But the land which is within, Auroville should be magnanimous enough to pay the small landowner enough compensation so that he can be satisfied, and there cannot be any bargaining about the cost of the land. So I personally feel that is where, if Auroville shows its magnanimity and does not start counting pound and shilling and pence, land problem can be resolved. And that is my personal view. And I also had a tenure with the land management in Auroville. And I am of the opinion, pay them the market rate. So that they are happy, they are satisfied. And if some land is available, but unfortunately they always want the best part of our land, which is the farmland,
Yes.
which is feeding us.
Yes.
Now that they have set their eyes on that, and we cannot afford to exchange with that.
Now, you know my good friend Mandakini,
Yeah.
who is raising a lot of funds.
Yes. She's raising
For
a
land
lot of
purchase.
funds. Yes.
Can the government help there possibly with funding?
With funding.
Just a thought.
Yes. I suppose we are in a catch-22 situation, because they are supporting us for infrastructure development, they are supporting us for education, and they are quite prepared to support us for health. And you'll be surprised, about 100% collective uh, buildings for offices, for health, for recreation, for exhibitions, they are all funded by government.
I see.
Yes. The buildings for capital development, they are prepared.
Would that include roads?
Yes, of course. They can road, electricity, water. So there is no hitch in that. Somehow or other, incidentally, the first land board, I was a member of it, being a member of the governing board. And the real conflict started with that land board because there was a little difference of opinion about exchange of land at that point of time. And now that I did my short tenure with the land board and I stepped back, I realize that the people who are refusing to give up the land,
Okay.
because that is very, very fertile and main farmland of Auroville. So they need not exchange that with them. So that is why this conflict has come up. Government feels that we should change, exchange, but individuals who have developed that land, they have different ideas. And I think now that I've stepped back, I think one has to respect that opinion as well.
Do you feel that collective harmony is increasing?
Oh, yes. Definitely. You see, little bit here and there always remains.
Sure.
But when it comes to taking a decision and putting your foot down, and then people understand. Unfortunately, world today has become rather fast. Nobody has time for each other.
Yes.
Now, if you explain why you are doing something, there's no problem in life. But since you do not have that time to explain, people misunderstand each other. They think he is trying to put his viewpoint across at their cost. But if you take time to explain and gradually bring about a change, it's not difficult. And that is the approach which Auroville has to take, because human unity is not like switching on electric connection. Two individuals have to agree to certain viewpoints, and once that mutual agreement has come about, development will be much faster and the growth is quicker.
Is the entry group widening out to embrace newcomers?
Couple of years back, we were very restrictive. Then we opened up. And of late, I find again we are becoming little restrictive. But having said this, we also do not want people to, I would say, wrong type of people joining Auroville for furthering their ends. So some system has to be followed. And now we have category of friends of Auroville, relatives of Auroville, and we get number of students every year who come and spend some time with us. So we understand them, they understand what Auroville is all about, and about 1 to 2% they volunteer to join Auroville. Now they are the real people who will increase the strength. Now this applies to even foreign countries. There are a number of visitors who come, spend some time, and if they find it attractive enough from their viewpoint, they come and settle down. Now we have people from 54 nationalities, 54 countries, which is a good number for experimentation.
Yes, certainly. I have known Meenakshi
Yes.
for more than 45 years. What about the Tamil population and the Tamil villagers? How is the unity extending to all?
You see, that also is very interesting. My personal views are that the villages which are physically connected to Auroville, it is the Aurovillians' responsibility to provide them education, health and water.
Yes.
You'll be happy to know that we are doing that. All these villages, we are providing them good education, health and water. Right. Having said this, the other factor is that I have not been able to analyze in details, but I get a gut feeling that about 60% of the village development depends on Auroville way of life, which is remarkable because there are a number of people who have started their personal small-scale industries like producing hammocks, producing candles, producing incense sticks, shoes, leather goods, even small-scale textile industries. So all over the villages, this activity has started. And the biggest, I think, employers in these surrounding villages is Auroville. So we have not been able to tabulate the income that is being generated by the villages which are in and around Auroville, but I am sure their livelihood has definitely improved. There is no doubt on that. I find now there are hardly any thatched roof houses. Every house is a permanent house. So obviously, and we are very proud to say that the type of education that we are providing in these villages, no government or other institutions can provide. We have dedicated staff and they love the children, they want to bring them up, and it becomes little difficult for us who are managing the educational problem to differentiate the funding pattern for both the institutions. And I personally feel that we are trying to do this, and our students from these villages which have attended Auroville run schools are doing extremely well for themselves. And so we are happy with that. We may not be as happy with the provision of health facilities, because that has also somehow or other not expanded to that extent, because the space which was available has been taken up by the government themselves. The government dispensaries have come up
In the villages.
in the villages. And there is a doctor who comes on by rotation twice a week. Then people have started earning more because of Auroville. So therefore, they would like to go to other doctors and not depend upon the government dispensaries or government health centers, because they feel that it has limited scope of treatment. So they all go there, and luckily for them, the institutions available for them in Pondicherry, with 3 medical colleges around, it is just about $5 for them to jump into a bus and come here for treatment. So that is what is happening. Because I know the people who help me out in my house, they come to Pondicherry Government Hospital for treatment. And they won't like to go to Auroville health centers because they feel it has limited scope of treatment.
Now, we have known for years of the brain drain of Indian people who have gone to England and US, but some are now coming back. What about the youth in Auroville when they complete their education? Are they staying or are they leaving? What percentage? Just by possibly.
You see, the youth, my way of looking at it, the youth must go out to complete their education in life. Because we are presently frog of a well. They have to be frog of a lake and then go and jump into the sea. That is world. So we cannot be happy to remain as frog of a well. So I feel an Auroville child who has developed himself into an integrated soul, if he goes out anywhere, he will be able to make a mark. He should work, and he should be able to share, which he does, and surprisingly, he also learns to not only share but care also he does, because he has been in Auroville. So he shares, cares, and also dares to some extent. The child who goes out. So that contact also with the outer world is essential. And I have no doubts that they will come back one day.
Last question. or rather something Nolini told me. In 1979, on my birthday, he talked for a long time about Orville and about many other things. He said to me, Orville is to be the last refuge of the world.
Yes, it's a beautiful thought that all shades, all colors, all types of humanities, saints to criminals, get a place to live in. Why not? Everybody in this world cannot be a saint. So even if a criminal comes with an open arm, why not? I would love to embrace a criminal as well in Auroville. I mean, criminal is, again, a very subjective.
Well, change,
Yes.
we can be sure of. Change is the only thing we can be absolutely sure of.
Correct.
Yes, I understand. Oh, it's been wonderful to be with you.
Thank you so much. So kind of you.
Namaste, sir.
God bless.